Okay, perfect. All right, so our final panel for this year's conference is how to work with the press when running for office. So there are so many pieces that go into this. So I'm really excited for these ladies to join us today. So we have Claire McFarland, who was another wonderful woman that got stuck because of our weather. Claire is joining us via Zoom. So Claire is a general assignment reporter for Cowboy State Daily, focusing on courts and crime coverage, state and tribal politics, and social issues. She's worked for the Ranger, the Wind River News, the Lander Journal, and has dabbled in copy editing and ghostwriting. Claire also writes a humorous column for the Cowboy State Daily. She's an award-winning poet, journalist, and columnist. And then next to me, we have Miss Haley McKee. Haley is a journalism major from the University of Wyoming, and the owner and principal, of Prosper Public Relations in Cheyenne, which is a full-service communications consulting firm working with a broad array of industry and government clients. Prior to establishing this business, she worked for U.S. Senator John Barrasso and U.S. Congresswoman and now Senator Cynthia Lummis in the capacity of press secretary. Following her years in Washington, D.C., Haley later worked in executive management at a large Wyoming state agency overseeing a major division. And then next to her is Miss Rebecca Fitzgerald, and she is a veteran political and communication strategist with more than a decade of experience using strategic communications to move policy initiatives, influence public perception, and raise the visibility of organizations. She spent 7 years leading the communication and outreach efforts for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, nearly 2 years outlining the top energy and environmental issues for state legislators across the country, while with the Council of State Governments, and 3 years in the role as a natural resource policy analyst to former Wyoming Governor Matt Mead. So please help me welcome Claire, Haley, and Rebecca. So do you have, is there a mic over there? Oh, thank you, Lisa. Okay, so I'm gonna hand mics over to you.
Sure.
And I would love you to just go ahead and tell us, go into more depth about who you are, what you do, how your careers look. And then I have some questions and we're gonna open it to the floor so they can ask questions as well. So Claire, if you wouldn't mind, if we could start with you and who are you?
Yeah, thank you. It's I can't see the ladies or people I'm talking to, so hopefully I am able to read the room a little when I can't see it. But yeah, I write for Cowboy State Daily. I have not worked like the other ladies have worked this side of writing press releases for hire and helping policymakers stay connected with people, whereas I come at you more like the voice, the eyes and ears of the people, and you have to channel your comments through me when you're giving an interview or whatever. So that's maybe a different perspective, being just completely in the press and not having taken on that public affairs role ever. But I will say a few things. I can't speak for everyone in the profession, but I will say that I don't like to just I don't have a broad axe, I feel like we should all come to a place of communication with our different perspectives, and with both strength and courtesy, and everyone should try to understand those different perspectives. And an ideal way to do that is through communicating, and communicating through press outlets that you are comfortable with, and just always adhering to your principles, adhering to your constituency, but also demonstrating that that not everyone is the same, and sending your truth out to compete in that competitive cacophony into that field. So more about me. I have 4 sons. I write not only for work, but also for hobby, and I'm very pleased to be here today.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to switch the camera to let you see the room. I just want you to know that we have a full room of incredible women. So you're speaking to lots of ladies.
Okay.
Pardon my
Oh,
screen just a little
good.
bit
Okay.
slightly. I don't know if that helps at all, Claire.
anyway, one of those up there should show the room. Okay, anyway, whoever would like to go next.
All right, can you hear me all right? Okay, thanks so much for allowing me to speak with you all today. It really is such a pleasure, and just always for women out there in politics, and bring your voice to the state. It's so important. So just really honored to be here with you today. You know, I started out in journalism with Wyoming Public Radio. When I started, I was actually as an intern there. And quickly learned that being a reporter was not my forte. And here's why. I'd be, doing an interview and saying to myself, oh, please don't say that. I have to report that, that's when I knew reporting and journalism wasn't really where I needed to be. I really needed to be helping people promote themselves and, ensuring that they're putting their best foot forward. So really that kind of started my first steps in my career. Went to work for Senator Barrasso as his press secretary, then worked with at the time Representative Lummis as her press secretary. And I think my pull to her was she was a woman leader, and I really wanted to have an opportunity to work for her and learn from her. So from there, jumped to executive management here in Wyoming. I actually met my husband on a campaign. It was Campaign Love. He was working for Governor Meade. And so there's so many great things that can come from campaigns, and so many great people you meet. And so that's an example for you. We've got 2 children and have been married for 10 years, but so really just, I think during that time and since then been, volunteer on campaigns for folks and help them with their efforts. But I think really when I think about campaigns and some of those communication elements and more broadly, just communication strategy, I really think about always the question is, who's your audience? And boiling that down to in terms of the constituency. And then when you are speaking with the press, is it a radio outlet? Is it a newspaper? Is it a TV station? So kind of thinking that way, and then utilizing that information to help form, what you're going to say and how you'll approach your communication with those individuals. Really focusing in on your message. So, come up I think about some of the campaigns I worked on with Senator Barrasso or with now Senator Lummis. At the time she was a representative, but thinking about three things I want to get across, and you can always bring whatever you're talking about back to those areas. And we can kind of talk a little bit more about what that looks like here in a bit, but finally, I think I would say I'm a big, what I call, and anyone I've worked with knows I'm a big recycler. So having some language, having some information down about your platform and about your messaging strategy, it's so easy just to pull that and regurgitate it in other forms and down the campaign trail throughout. I mean, you're going to be, campaign life is quick and fast paced. So having something at the ready that you can easily come up with if you get, if you realize you have to write a press release or you have to throw something up on social media, always good to have some of that core messaging ready that you can utilize throughout the campaign. So those are kind of 3 points I think throughout my career and throughout my experiences that taught me were really beneficial and kind of helped me help the people I was supporting.
Great. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Fitzgerald. And again, just thanks so much for having me here. And It is echoing Haley. It's very exciting just to be in a room full of women, Wyoming women that just are leaders in their space and are stepping out. Whether or not you're contemplating running for office, whether you just ran for office, I see Dr. Hinkle there. Congratulations on your election. And or folks that are supporting. I see Sue Summers in the back, Speaker Summers' wife, and everybody has a different role to play when it comes to Wyoming and moving Wyoming forward. And I really hope that we can bring more women to the table in elected positions across the spectrum of elected positions. And so just a little bit about me, growing up in Wyoming, and I think my first work in political campaigns was that official, I worked in 2008 with Governor Gordon. He was running against Representative Lummis actually for that seat. And so I was just an intern in college and kind of dipping my toe into elections. And then 2010, I actually worked very closely with Haley's husband, Colin, on the Meade campaign. And so it becomes a very tight circle as Wyoming gets. But fast forward and through my work, I started off in policy. And one of the things that I quickly learned with policy was you can have great policy, but if you can't communicate it clearly and effectively, people don't know that policy exists. They don't know what it does for them. And so as my career with policy kind of evolved, I saw the opportunity to move that into communications. And what I learned very quickly was everything's a campaign. So whether or not it is you're running for elected office or you're trying to get a message across, everything becomes a campaign. And so some of the things I think we'll talk about today too are relevant on the campaign trail and are relevant just as you advance your work in your communities. And so there are tidbits to take away and take back home of how you want to work. And I'll just say, I hope we'll have a lot of questions. I know we've got a few seated questions that I have seated across the room. But what I'll just say is one of the biggest things is be authentic. I think when I come and I work with candidates, and I've this last cycle, I had 5 races that I was managing in some capacity, and I've worked with people all over the country working different races. And the one thing that is consistent across is that you need to be authentic of who you are and what you want to do. And going back and echoing from Haley is it's taking the work early on to do some self-examination. You learn a ton about yourself when you're running for a campaign. And what do I really want people to know about me? What do I want them to know about the issues that I care about? And making sure that those issues actually are relevant to the office that you're running for. That's important. But having that space to come back and be grounded is really, really key. And so when you're getting advice from other people, when you're in the heat of the moment, when you've got a reporter calling, that you know who you are and what you want to be saying. And that's really important, because win or lose, at the end of the day, you've now put yourself out there on a public stage. And
Oh no, did it die?
I think it might have died. Just quit.
Testing.
There we go. You're putting yourself out there on a public stage, and you want that to be who you are, because especially if you don't win, that might be the snippet that people remember about you, and you got to go back into your community. And so that's kind of the main thing that I would just say for now. And again, questions. And Claire, I'm so glad to have you and your perspective. I think it's so important. And what I would just say about press is I think we often make them boogeyman's, but they're not. They're people that live in their communities, and they want to help you advance your message. And so having conversations like this of how to do that most effectively is really, really great.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we're all sharing.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I was going to say, Rebecca. I'm so glad to have the different perspectives, because, just even as myself as an independent person with stuff and dealing with on her side, Claire's side, it's so different, right? So, and I keep looking at that face and the camera's actually there.
I know.
Sorry, I'll look at you this way. So really excited to have all of you. Anyway, okay, so you touched on so many things already, but one question I do have for you, what do you think is one most important thing that someone who is working on a campaign needs to think about when it comes to the press? However you want to.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll take that. And it really just kind of builds on what Rebecca was just saying was, this is actually, the things that I do with my PR firm, or when you're working for a candidate on a campaign, or you are a candidate, you're doing some sort of messaging strategy. You're kind of referred to as a FLAC, and then the reporters are the hacks. That's like some of the PR and journalism pull and tug, right? So, but it truly is a partnership, and you do need to think about it that way. Reporters, they need that information to be able to write their stories. They're on deadline. The speed of news now is faster than ever. So if you can look at it more as it's an opportunity to work together, to build some trust, and in the end, hopefully everyone wins. They're able to write a story that's accurate, has your point of view, and you get positive publicity out of it. Really, I think just viewing that as a partnership, and they are people. They're just people. I spent a lot of time with reporters. I was a reporter, and then kind of was on the public relations side, and reporters sometimes do get that kind of bad rap, but I think that's just not the way it is. It really, they are critical folks in our democracy, and they, when you do work together and you develop those relationships with them, you start building trust, and that's when I think everything and that relationship works best, and the people benefit the most.
Right, if you want to take a stab and then.
What was that to me?
Well, I was just wondering, I wanted to give you the opportunity, but.
Oh, sure. So the question was, how should you think about the press while you're running? Was that the question?
What was one really important thing that someone who's working on a campaign, so it's kind of opposite you, needs to think about when it comes to working with the press, but that's where you come in.
Oh, so I'm advising the other side. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard the question to begin with, but I got so mesmerized with what Haley was saying that I was yeah. So the other side, well, I actually work with a very successful former PR guy, and he's kind of the angel on one shoulder, like if we call someone 10 times, they don't answer, it feels super important in the moment. You want to write in the story, so-and-so did not return 10 calls. And that's not the right thing to do. You just, so-and-so cannot be reached for comment. So we have those, that there's some tension is natural and some tension is good, because if we get too chummy with all the public officials, then the people are not being served. If we get too chummy with the people's every whim, then the public officials don't get a fair shake. So there's that tension and that balancing act. But how the person running, the candidate or their team approaches the press is what Rebecca said earlier really resonated with me. Authenticity melts us. It melts us. And even if, personally, or even if you've got a slightly bent newspaper that maybe disagrees with that person fundamentally, which we hope that's not the case. We hope there's not those biases, but we see just pundits popping up all over the place to where it's kind of a minefield. We can tell when you're being yourself, and we can tell when you're addressing an issue directly. And I like to think we're not vindictive. Like if you ghost us and if you lie to us, I like to think we just go on trying to set the truth free. And if you want to be that way, that's up to you. But I do think that it accumulates. And if a candidate and later a public official has a reputation of not addressing what people want them to address and not being transparent about who they are and what they're trying to do, it does catch up with them. Even if we are being gracious with one another. So another thing, I know this is kind of a side note, but in my community, I see a lot of times people run for office and the ones that seem to do well, maybe you ladies can speak more to this, get right out there and declare that they're running and why. And even if another person is running for the exact same reason, the guy that declared that reason first, or the lady in this case, declared that reason first tends to resonate more with people. Have you ladies noticed that at all in your work?
Claire, you just led right into where I was going. So thanks.
There
for
you
that.
go. It's your
You know,
turn.
we coordinated really well.
Yeah, which we didn't, but yeah.
I'm not being authentic. No, I was just going to talk through a little bit from the tactical side of things when it comes to working with the press. And I'm always advising candidates and clients that I'm working with, and you may have talked about this a little bit earlier when you were talking about running for office and some of the tactical components, but when we're talking about getting ready to run, and the one thing that I love about campaigns is there's an end date. At the end of the day, like there's an election and you can put that over here on a sticky note or on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever and work your way backwards. And that's how we build campaigns. And so from a tactical perspective, when you look at communications and you look at what you want to utilize for communication tools, press and press releases, that's one component. Nowadays you've got your social media component and then you've got your advertising. So we talk about earned media, which is that media that we've been talking about, building those relationships with reporters and having noteworthy stories and that reporters want to cover. And then you've got your paid components, which gets you all into all the advertising, et cetera. But the earned media side, you really want to look at your campaign and you want to say, where's my opportunities to really earn some media attention? And that's absolutely correct. The launch of a campaign and the telling your story of why you want to run, that's a really important component to communicating with the voters. And that is when we talk about developing a press release. That's one of the things that I always we talk with candidates and we're like, we're going to put together a press release and we're going to tell people why you're running. We're going to tell them the top three reasons why you're running. And we're going to make sure it gets disseminated to everybody that would be interested. Some folks do that in conjunction with their kickoff. And so a lot of times you can do that where you do like a press advisory, for example. I'm going to have an event, I'm going to be making an announcement. You're invited to come, you come. But what I would say is don't just send the email, make the phone call and do some work there or have somebody help you do some work there. And so, but as you look at your campaign and you look at opportunities, where might be an opportunity? And Haley and I, as we were prepping, we were discussing, and we did coordinate because we were working right next to each other. But as we were discussing it, there are those opportunities that exist kind of in a natural flow, and especially a natural kind of space of a community. And so taking opportunities to say, what do we have going on in the community that I want to make sure people know that I care about? If you're running for school board, that may be it may be the very fact that a school board meeting is happening and there's a really hot button topic and that relates to your campaign and it relates to what you want to do. And you want to be in front of it, or maybe you want to be behind it and say, well, I would have done that a little bit differently. And just taking those opportunities. I know one of the things that we utilize a lot in Wyoming are those county fairs. We take those opportunities to talk about what we want to do for the next generation, and to really leverage those existing opportunities, and to just be authentic about what you're doing in your community. And whether that's through the press and inviting them, or whether that's through another medium. Radio is a really powerful tool in Wyoming too, that we often don't talk a lot about, but we listen to a lot. And so there's opportunity there. And I don't know if we'll get into it, or one of you will have a question, but we can talk about too, what happens when you got your nice squeaky plan. It's perfect. You've got the dates on in the Excel, but something comes up that you weren't prepared for. Claire calls you out of the blue and says, well, you're running for city council. What do you think about this topic? Oh, I wasn't ready for that phone call, right? Tactically, we'll just talk a little bit about it since I already have the microphone. What I always tell people and advise people is you have the opportunity to collect your thoughts, to take the time. Claire calls you out of the blue and asks you the question. You can say, right? I've got, can I call you back in 10 minutes? Can I call you back in an hour? And just get your thoughts, because at the end of the day, she wants to report on the topic, but she's not trying to play a gotcha move. She wants to be reflective of what you want to say, and you taking the time to collect your thoughts and say, all right, this is what I want to say. This is my perspective on this topic. Never be afraid to say, 10 minutes, an hour, or whatever the case may be. Make sure you call them back though, if you're going to say you're going to call them back. But that's, so there are some things that you can do as it relates to that. And then, there's those things that people really want to talk about that you really don't want to talk about. And those are the hard things. And those are the things that, as a leader, as an elected official, you're going to have to learn how to do. And what I would just say is, it's important to be authentic. It's important not to dodge the questions, but it's also really important to talk about it and frame it in how you feel like it needs to be framed. Just because somebody wants to frame it as this really divisive thing, it could be something as your signs are getting defaced, right? And that's what everybody wants to talk about on social media. That's what everybody wants to throw in the water as a little bit of red meat and get you all excited. And you can talk about it however you want to talk about it. Think about go back to your 3 things and think about, well, how does this work? How does this advance? What do I want to talk about? And maybe your top thing is civility. Well, here's a great opportunity to talk about civility, right? And you can talk about the defacing and what that means, but then you now have an opportunity, because you now have a captured audience, to say what you want to say. And that's what I would just doing that preparatory work when you're getting ready to run for something, or even when you're just working in the community on a topic. It's taking the time to really spend some time up front and think about this. Like, if I'm addressed with this, how would I tackle it? So
I have to make a comment. I'm not planning on running for office, but I have to talk to people. And last year, we had put out a press release for this event. So not this year, I didn't screw up this year, but last year. And people still came, so it was good. It was a gentleman reporter that called me, and I wasn't ready. I should have been ready, but I wasn't ready. And I didn't know you could do that. So he was asking me something about why this conference is so great. And I said something along the lines of, we really want to focus on the women. We need more women in office, and there aren't enough. And I'm not saying I don't like guys. I like guys. And, we're different than them. I'm married and like all of this. So I was talking like this. He put it in the article, It was horrible. I was so embarrassed. Like I sounded like a fool. And okay, so Claire, and I don't mean to jump in,
Yeah, no.
but I have a question for you. So I guess I was disappointed. So this is where we don't like the press, right? Because I thought maybe he would be nice and take those stupid words that I said. Sorry, guys. Take those words and make me sound not like an idiot. I mean, it was really bad. Anyway, what was that about? I mean, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. I don't know. But
Gosh,
it was bad.
Claire. You know, that again comes back to a balancing act, because we try never to get too nice on y'all, on policymakers, on public officials, because it's our job to shed that light and to carve away that dross and whatever else needs to be done to let people know exactly what's going on. On the other hand, and again, this is me, I can't speak for everyone. I really try to bring out what they're actually saying. And if I need to call you, if I need to text you, like, did you mean this? I will, but I'm not gonna rescue you if you like full knowing. So it's a balancing act. A lot of times, and the AP instructs us, don't edit the quotes too much. The ellipses, the parentheses, you can do as necessary to make it make sense in the context, in the narrative. But they say, try to keep as many quotes full as you can. And I notice that a lot. I'm nicer than other reporters, and I'll put in parentheses like, this is a little explainer of what he was trying to say or she was trying to say, or I'll ellipses out that long rambling nonsense because you haven't had your coffee yet. And so, I mean, I feel like if you said something stupid or that you think was stupid, and then you've still got them on the phone, or you have the opportunity to text them, you could be like, hey, I know I said this, because that's the thing. You can't take it back. You can't order us to take it back. You can say, hey, I know I said this, but I really want you to know that I meant it this way. And I hope you'll consider that. And I look forward to working with you in the future, because it's always that, we don't live on access journalism. We don't just report so we can stay in touch with you and always have access to your thoughts, but we do want to continue working with you, and we do want the meaningful communication conduit relationship. So if you say, I need you to know this is what I actually meant, the story didn't run yet, but chances are we're going to consider that thought, that amendment, if you will.
I had so many other better statements, and so it's funny. So I actually thought that, he did it on purpose, because I had some really good stuff in it. So I didn't even think to approach him after the fact. I mean, I knew I said the things, but I was like, he won't use that. And if he'll use these other things that I said that were really intelligent, and he didn't. So then I'm like, he did it on purpose because I'm a woman and he wants me to look like an idiot. So I am not using him again. I will not do an interview with him again. Anyway.
See, so if you do feel like he deliberately made a fool out of you, that might be a wise choice. But if you are willing to believe that he too did not have his coffee, you could call him and be like, I just want you to know that wasn't the smartest quote I used. I don't really appreciate it. Here's what I actually meant. And I felt like you should have been able to discern that. If he's receptive to that, he might be worth working with in the future. If he's not receptive to that, then find another reporter you like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I mean, traumatizing. Okay. Did you all answer that one? Now I can't remember. I got up on a tangent.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so again, you guys have touched on so many things, but what do you think is the best way to get their message out to people?
I can start. I'll try to be briefer.
You're fine.
Yeah. So the best way is really think about your community and how people consume information in your community, right? So you're trying to talk to voters that are living in your community or in your district, or if it's statewide, then it's much more complex. But think about how they consume the media. Think about how you consume the media. But what I find too is when I started working with a lot of folks, they consume media in a certain way. And that might not be the way that other people consume it. So doing that work, I talk a lot about tactics, right? So doing that work up front to do that brainstorm exercise, or assign that to your best friend, to do that work and really come up with, what is the options for how to communicate within your community, and then think about where you want to reach, and who you want to reach. And when you think about, I've got these 3 pillars of my campaign, or maybe it's 4, don't go past 5, please. It might be best too, that you utilize one method to talk about this specific topic. It might be the audience is younger. It might be that this type of audience is informed a certain way, or that this type of audience is consuming this news source differently than, and especially like with radio stations, I think, the person that listens to country might have a different perspective than somebody that's listening to a different radio station. That's maybe the clearest way that I can say that. But, and if you've lived in your community long enough too, that that this group of people consumes, the livestock roundup, is your ranchers, and you really want to talk to them. You probably need to seek out that opportunity to talk to a reporter of the livestock roundup, and talk about that topic, which might be different than your general newspaper or your radio. The people that, if that a group of people are always talking about this radio host, then you need to go get on that radio program. So that would be my suggestion.
And I think Rebecca is talking kind of about very specific messaging for specific audiences. If you've got something big, you want everyone to know, write a press release. So that's your who, what, when, why, where. Add maybe add a video if you can, get your cell phone, add a video of you talking. That way maybe the if it's quality enough video, the TV could pick it up, and then the radio station can pull the audio from that. So you can hit all of those outlets with just one vehicle, being that press release. With press releases, some of those, and when I do work with candidates or clients, you can use all sorts of things to do that. With press release, you just email it out, and you have your reporter list all of their emails, and include all of that information: the who, what, when, why, where, your quotes, and then those priorities that you've developed. So I think that's an easy way. Take a quote from the press release, put it on your Facebook or Twitter, and boom. So really kind of going back to that, put your effort into one thing and then use it for multiple avenues to just blast that message out. And I think that's one thing I learned when, you have to be really fast and really, really flexible on things. That's been really effective, is just really putting your effort in on one thing, and that can generate all sorts of dividends for you in all of those different platforms.
Claire, do you have from your?
I like what Haley's saying, and I want to even expand upon it some, because not everyone is a writer, right? And so press releases are a great idea because they can be chopped up and reused and redisseminated. A lot of people don't automatically switch into thinking, oh, I know how to, write this news article about myself, as though I'm not myself and I'm interviewing myself. But it's smart. So I watched our local sheriff. He gave a stump speech at a Republican events, at a party events. And he wrote it all down. And then for his press release, when he was declaring his candidacy, he just took some key quotes from it and wove them in. It's weird for me to talk about this since I do it so often, but bear with me if I'm sounding oversimplistic. So yeah, just like Haley was saying, the first paragraph is, so-and-so announces her candidacy for this office when, or announced, I like past tense because I'm pressed, but, and then immediately go into a powerful quote, why you're running, perhaps some more powerful quotes interstrewn with narrative about the issues and especially who you are and your ties to the area, after why you're running. Do you have a thought on what I've just said, Haley? Hopefully all that made sense. Yeah. Because a lot of times what people will think are press releases that they're disseminating is actually a statement, and it's in first person, and it's, I'm doing this because it's actually a statement given in first person about what you're doing. But if you can get through that instead and write a press release as though you're interviewing yourself and you've written a news story about yourself, what we have now are like Oil City News, County 10, County 17, a lot of these, if you send them a press release, a lot of times, I'm not promising, they just run it raw. Whereas the older newspaper style, back when I worked in paper and even now Cowboy State, we take your press release and we chop it up with context and other interviews and events and things that we know. And we pull out of it the bits that we think are relevant to a neutral news story. So if you can get yourself to write a news story about yourself instead of just, here's a statement of everything I want to say, then you have a greater chance of not just newer outlets, but old traditional outlets running it raw, exactly as you have it, exactly as you designed it. So if anyone would like to counter that or add to that, feel free.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything you just said. So.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to open it up. Does anyone out there have a question? Okay, yeah. I'm gonna come.
I guess I could come.
No, you're fine.
So I first ran for office in 2006. And the press coverage of state legislative races was so different then. We had a lot of local news coverage, and I've noticed in the last 2 election cycles that the coverage of state legislative races has really not been as in depth. And I'm in Cheyenne, so I don't know about the smaller communities, but we used to have detailed, in-depth interviews with the Tribune Eagle and a long, sort of torturous interview with the editorial board. And I guess I just wondered, from your perspective, Haley and Rebecca, and also your perspective, Claire, as an online daily. I was actually sitting here reading the Cowboy State Daily and listening. Sorry. How do people who want to run in this room deal with that new reality? I think it's harder to get your message out when the press has changed its business model.
Are you guys wanting me to start, or is?
Sorry.
You want to start, Claire?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Okay.
If you go for it. Or,
Oh, the microphone was being run. Sorry. Sorry. Everything in the room is very hazy. Sorry, ladies. I need to be careful here because because I used to work for a local paper outfit, and everything was like you're describing, very detailed, very localized. Every city council candidate, every county commission candidate just laid out on a platter for everyone to see. And we are seeing the decline of local journalism, and that's sad because it's really within small communities that a lot of the biggest issues are dealt with, and a lot of the biggest questions are confronted. But I would say, to your question about running and getting your message out, first try us, try sending out that press release like we talked about, because then it's out there, and hopefully we don't ignore you. If you're city council, we might, unless there's an associated controversy. now, now that most outlets are statewide, or many outlets, prominent outlets are statewide. And then secondly, if that doesn't work, and I'm gonna kick myself for saying this, you can contact your constituency or potential constituency on social media. And my editor, who used to work in public relations for a governor, actually, in California, said that his philosophy was, if we don't say it, we didn't do it. So if you've done something, or even you have a message that you're proud of, say it. Do try. Try the press, and then if that fails, because I always prefer the press because it's less chaotic. If that fails, you can try social media.
Yeah, Mary, I would just echo your observations about the change in the landscape. And Claire, you hit it well. The state of journalism and in Wyoming right now is in a hard spot. And if you think about from a traditional, and even, I mean, even with the move to online pieces, there's very few, the number of reporters is declining. The reason why something like a Wyoming Tribune Eagle isn't doing the number of stories, et cetera, is they literally do not have the number of reporters that they used to have. And so when you talk about trying to get that message out, and that's why you've seen a shift in the last 2 cycles. I don't believe it's a coincidence that you've seen a landscape of journalism across Wyoming change. You've seen a decline in the ones that continue to exist. You've seen a decline in readership of traditional journalism, of those newspapers. Their circulations are down. There are a couple that are really staying very nice and steady, but you just have to pull up that Wyoming Press Association list to kind of see that. And what I was going to say is, I don't think it's a coincidence that you've seen a decline in that journalism landscape and a increase in more traditional campaign tactics that you would normally see in other states, right? So I'm talking about lots of paid ads, lots of paid mailers, social media is your, and so a lot of those tactics that maybe didn't exist in Wyoming before, and they're not always the most positive tactics. I'll just say it that way, that you've seen an increase in that because people have recognized candidates with means and resources, especially when it comes to money, have recognized that there is no longer this kind of natural flow, an ecosystem. It's been disrupted. And so if you're thinking seriously about running, that is a reality that you will face. And that means that things will cost more money. You used to be able to, I mean, my husband ran for the legislature in 2014, lost by 1 vote. But, you know, it was a legislative race. We spent $3,000. I was working with candidates this last cycle. We spent on average 20,000 plus, right? So that is a drastic difference. Some races next cycle, legislative races, I think we'll probably be looking at closer to $100,000. And that is very different than what we have faced. And so that means you have to be more strategic. That means you have to be more thoughtful. That means you have to be more organized than you ever were before. But
I would just add, there's power in being a pest.
yes,
And Claire, I'm sorry I'm saying this, but if I have one talent in my life, it is that I am very persistent and I can be a pest. And so, you know, just, you know, don't be rude, but reach out. I mean, there's sometimes it's doing things that feel uncomfortable, unnatural, but reach out and just say, hey, I would love to talk to you about what I stand for, you know, this race that I'm running. And you can talk to reporters and pitch it a few times. I mean, like I said, don't go too far. But reporters are busy, they might pass on a story one week and then maybe the next week it's slower news, and they might pick it up. And I think like when I worked with Senator Rasso on his race in 2008, he wanted to do every radio station. He wanted to fill his entire day with radio interviews, 15-minute intervals, bam, bam, bam. And I was looking at my emails, kind of refreshing my memory of what that race was like just recently. And I pulled up the sheet and it was filled from morning till night with radio interviews. He loved to do media. Not everyone's like that, but I'd contact the radio stations or arrange an earned media interview. So that's basically just, the reporters talking to you, handing you time for basically free. For the radio stations who declined, we paid for a 15-minute interview. So I mean, just solid coverage. And that was a statewide race, of course. But, I think there's, like I said, there's power in just getting yourself out there. If it doesn't work the first time, try again. And yeah, just really try your best to get as much coverage as you want. And there are creative ways of doing that. So do that. There are platforms like MailChimp that you can collect emails of folks in your area. And so basically it's like an email platform, and that's what I use for a lot of clients to send press releases. There's a free version, but you can create your own newsletter. I mean, you can make your own news that way. And if you have this mailing list, you can blast out your activities and any of your priorities to your folks on your mailing list on a regular basis or whenever you see fit. And then of course, yeah, social media is just a great way for reaching people. So a few other thoughts to add there.
Any other questions out there in the audience? Any other? What?
Alex, you had a question?
Where? Hi, thank you. I can't see your arm.
So regarding the way that you as the press want to receive information, should I copy and paste the entire press release in an email? Do I attach it? Do I call you first? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I like to have the entire press release, but if you have a feeling that, if you're, I guess, if you're wanting to work with us and continue that relationship, it's great. It's a great idea to call. Our numbers are not secret. I think half of Wyoming has my cell phone number. A lot of times we paste our emails under our byline on our stories. So what Haley was saying, be a pest is a great idea. If you reach out to, let's say, the main email address for a newspaper and nobody gets back to you and you send your press release, it shouldn't be hard to find all the individual reporters that work for that outlet, newspaper or whatever, and actually contact them and send your message out to them as well. And one of them, it might resonate with one of them, and then you've got a foothold. So yeah, we love pests, actually.
So follow up on that. I don't know where I got this assumption from, but is there like any competition amongst reporters of their own place? Like if I send it to everybody, is somebody going to get offended because one person should have had the story, but now I've offered it to everybody?
So, I've worked in a scenario like that. I don't now. I worked in a scenario like that, but it usually wasn't a big deal. Mostly, I think what you're going to find is we have different beats or emphases. We also we have slightly different personalities. So I feel like it's a good idea to reach out to the political reporter first if you're working with political themes. And then if that doesn't work, I think it's open game. I don't think we're hypersensitive about it either way, though. One time I had a person, a PR person, reach out to me specifically on a political thing. They wanted me, and I really wanted to do the story, but I didn't want to step on my political reporter's toes. I do dabble in political just because it's a large beat, so I do a lot, but I have a main political reporter. So I just talked to him, and in this case, he did want the story. So if that PR person thought that their candidate, their people would connect better with me, sorry. You're out of luck this time. I don't think people are gonna get too ticked off though. I think just throw stuff at as many of us as you can. You'll be all right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so this will probably be our last question, and because I am a 9, and that's not really why, but I would love to know, what you guys love the most. Well, I guess, yeah, I'm like Lovey, so what you guys love the most about what you do, Claire, what you do.
Oh, you're gonna start with me again.
Sure.
Okay. I fear I didn't give the other ladies enough time to talk, and they're so very insightful, and it's really good for me to hear from them because that's important for me to have that empathy that comes from seeing what you do. So thank you. I'm actually learning as I'm teaching here. But what I love is letting the truth out. And some reporters might say, I love going for the kill, or I love all the controversy. I just love that the more direct question, the louder the truth is. And honestly, that's my favorite.
Thank you.
I think my favorite thing is just getting behind someone and working with someone and getting their voice heard. My firm is Prosper Public Relations because I want to help people prosper, and I want to be on their side and ensure that, you know, the good things they're doing are being represented and voiced in the public. And if they need defense, I'm here to help them with that too, and just make sure that their best foot is being put forward, and if need be, they're being defended and they have an advocate on their side. So I think for me, I've always been a natural cheerleader, like I kind of going back to that story about working at Wyoming Public Radio, where I was like, I can't, you know, I actually have to report that. You know, and there are so many good interviews, but you know, you'll get one or two where you're like, I need to help in with like your story too. I need to help this person a little bit. And I knew that I didn't belong in journalism then, but it really just goes back to my natural, my instinct to defend someone or to make sure that their efforts are being known.
Yes, that's Haley in a nutshell. Yeah, what I love about the work that I do is, you know, I'm from Wyoming. I have a Wyoming focus. Like I said, I've worked with folks all over the country on different races, but I really care about the state and wanting to advance perspectives, advance the work that's being done in the state to do positive work and to really make a meaningful difference. And so I like to work with candidates. I like to work with clients that are really tackling the tough issues. There's lots of noise out there, and I do get a little bit defensive when folks come in and want to change everything to where they came from. And I love people from everywhere, but like, I love Wyoming. And so I spend a lot of time, that's where I spend a lot of time focused, is how do we advance things for the Wyoming that we know, and how do we stay focused on issues. And you know, my firm is Fitzgerald Strategies. So if we're going back to like why we called ourselves what we did, it is because I strategically do want to move some of those issues forward. And it does tie back to that kind of policy focus that I initially started with my career. And so that's where I like to spend my time. And that's what I really love doing. And I love helping people that really just want to make their place and space better, and understand that That also means that there is variety of perspectives that exist in that community, exist in that place, and that we all have something to bring to that. And so I don't, when we talk about like those negative tactics, et cetera, that's not the space that I like to play. And so I love working with people that are just positive and that want to bring that positive change. So.
Anybody else out there? I know I said that was the last one, but I just want to give you another opportunity. Nothing there? Okay. Well, this was incredible. The information was amazing. Thank you. You ladies are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Claire, I'm sorry you couldn't be here, but I'm so grateful that you could join us on Zoom. Stay warm and hopefully you have sunshine over there. It's sunny here now. It's still cold, but anyway,